So in Module 3, you'll learn how to import your PlansXpress plans to build an estimate in EstimatorXpress, basically. I'll show you how you can estimate preliminary costs, such as site establishment and travel costs, and also how to add subcontract quotations to your estimate. It's really important to note before we begin importing into EstimatorXpress that ideally you want your plans to be complete before you import them. It is possible to re-import your plans if you subsequently make some changes, adapt your drawing, but any changes that you've made within the estimate, within the estimating calculators, will be overridden when you re-import your drawing. So in an ideal world, you'll have your PlansXpress drawing in a finished state before you import into EstimatorXpress. So hopefully you've got EstimatorXpress open in front of you, and you'll remember that we start in EstimatorXpress on the dashboard screen. So from the dashboard screen, you'll remember we can view all the jobs that we've already been working on. You can see at a glance the overall status of your jobs. But if you want to look at your jobs in more detail, then you want to go to the Jobs screen. So on the Navigator on the left-hand side of your screen, click where it says Jobs. And this takes you to a detailed list of all of your jobs. From here, you can change the job details. So if you want to change the name of the job or the description of the job, you can do that from here. You can also change the status of the different jobs. So you can indicate whether it's an estimate in progress, whether the job's due to start, and so on. So I'll just give you a quick run through of the buttons on this screen just to help you orientate yourself with the software a little bit more before we go on to import our PlansXpress drawing. So first of all, on the ribbon at the top of the screen, you'll see we've got this Jobs tab. From here, you can create a new job. So that's when you want to start a new estimate. You can open a job. So that means open an existing estimate, so one that you've already created. You can also copy a job. So there may be times when you want to copy an existing estimate to create a new one. Two main reasons why you might want to do that. Firstly, you might want to make some adjustments to an estimate but keep an original version. So you can make a copy and then make changes to the new version, and then you'll have two different versions of the same estimate. The other reason you might want to copy an estimate is if you're estimating a job which is very similar to an estimate you've done in the past, or even if you're doing two nearly identical houses on a development or something. So you can do the first estimate, make a copy, make any changes and tweaks that you need to within the copied version. So that can be quite a useful function there, the copy job button. Delete job does what you would expect it to do. It deletes the estimate from your computer altogether. You really need to exercise care with using this button. Unless you have backed up your estimate, so unless you've copied the estimate file to another place, if you press the delete job button, it will be gone for good. So think twice before deleting jobs. Think about whether you really need to do that. The final button we've got on this Jobs tab is the Import Job button. This button allows you to bring estimates back into your software. So if you have backed them up somewhere and you then want to bring them back into your software, you can use that button to do so. Also, if you have created an estimate on another machine, so if you've got multiple licenses of EstimatorXpress, you can click the Import Job button to move estimates between machines and to re-import into your software. So of course, once you've created any jobs, they will be listed here in the job screen. You can make changes to any of the jobs by clicking on them. You'll see the job details pane on the right hand side here, giving you a summary of the job. And if you click the edit button, you can go through and change the various job details. So the job name, description, its number, and finally its status. So statuses can be useful when you've got a large list of estimates. It allows you to see where you're up to with your various jobs, and it's also a good indicator of the success of your jobs. So we've got 6 different statuses. So estimate in progress is the first one, which means you're obviously still estimating the job. Awaiting customer reply, So you would select that status when you have shown your quote to the customer and you're waiting to get the go-ahead from them. Due to start is when you've won the job, but construction isn't yet underway. Build in progress, obviously once construction is underway. Completed, job done. And the last status, hopefully you won't need to use very often. Unsuccessful quote is for when you don't win the job. So as the jobs progress, you can alter their status, and it just gives you a quick visual of what stage each job is up to. So that can be quite useful. So of course you could click OK to save any changes or cancel if you haven't made any changes. Okay, so that's the job screen. So if you want to create a new job, a new estimate, then the button you want to click is the Create New Job button on the ribbon at the top of the screen. So click Create New Job. And then the next screen prompts you to select how you want to create the estimate. So in EstimatorXpress, there are 4 ways of creating an estimate. Firstly, you can use a standard job template. So within EstimatorXpress, we have quite a large library of pre-designed templates for new builds, bungalows, extensions, garages, and also conservatories now. So these really speed up the estimating process. So if you're not doing a takeoff in PlansXpress, if you want to just estimate directly in EstimatorXpress, then that's the quickest way of doing it, using a standard job template if you're doing fairly standard work. The next option we've got is to estimate using a custom job template. So you would select this option if you're doing renovation work, any kind of non-standard work, attic conversions as well. We've got attic conversions in the pipeline, so soon we should have some standard job templates for various configurations of attic conversion, but at present we don't. So if you wanted to estimate an attic conversion, again, just using EstimatorXpress, so this is if you haven't done a takeoff in PlansXpress, then you would use the quote from custom job template option. So the third option we've got is to import plans from PlansXpress and take off and estimate directly from the drawing. So this is obviously the process we're going to go through today. The final option is to quote from scratch, as we call it, using estimating calculators. So this is more of a manual process for estimating. There's no templates involved, but it provides a great deal of flexibility in terms of customizing the work that you're doing. So we leave that option in there as well. For now, of course, we're going to click on the third option, quote from PlansXpress import. So click the third option down. And then this screen will open up, prompting you to locate the PlansXpress drawing file that you want to import. So what we need to do is locate the PlansXpress drawing file that we worked on last week. So my latest version is called Training Drawing 3. So if you can locate where you saved your training drawing, it may be in the desktop if you did the same as me, or it might be elsewhere on your computer. Click to select the training drawing and then click Open. Of course, it's probably a good idea to set up a folder where you save all of your takeoffs so that you know where to find them. It's easy to lose track of where your PlansXpress drawing files are. I should say the PlansXpress drawing file has a file extension .pxd, so that's the file type that you're looking for. Okay, so once you have selected your drawing that you want to import, the new job window opens up. On the right hand side here, you can see we've got a thumbnail of the drawing, just so you can check you have selected the correct drawing. So we're going to look on the left hand side here now, so you can see that we're being prompted to type in the job details for this estimate that we're creating. So the job name comes from the PlansXpress file. As you can see, that's been copied over. You can change the name to whatever you want it to be. If you want it to be something different, the job name could be the site address, it could be the client's name, whatever's meaningful to you. I'm sure you have your own systems within your company. So I'm going to set the job name to Mr. and Mrs. Hurst, for example. I'm going to name it after the client, let's say. So once you've typed in a job name, the next thing you need to do is select a job description. So there's a long list of different job descriptions in there, so you can scroll down and choose an appropriate description from the list. So for example, there's a lean-to extension option, or there's a generic extension. So whichever you like. The job description will appear in the customer quote. If the job description you want isn't in there, you can just type directly into that box there. So you just delete the description in there and type whatever you like the description to be. If you do type your own in, just make sure your spelling is correct and your capitalization and stuff looks neat, because of course it's going to be appearing in your customer quote. So the job number, job reference is called here, that is automatically applied by EstimatorXpress. You can override it and type in your own job reference if you want to, again, if you've got your own systems for numbering jobs within your company. Okay, so on the right hand side here we have some options to type in the client address and the site address. So if we click where it says client address, again the customer's address details will appear in your quote. So make sure you fill them in at some point, otherwise you'll have blank fields within the quote. And again, make sure you type them in correctly. Obviously, you want to be creating a really good impression from the off, so make sure you're spelling the client's name correctly, and so on. So here it's just a case of typing in the client's name. Now, because I've used this example before, it's asking me if I want to use the client address that I previously used, so that's quite handy if you're doing multiple jobs for the same company. I'm going to click no for now. So simply type in the address. I'm just typing in some random address details here. You do the same at your end, and then you'll be able to see how the address details appear in the quote later on. Okay, you can fill in the phone numbers and email address as well, but the most crucial thing is to have the address in there. Once you've typed in the address, there's an option here to copy the client's address details across to the site address. So if the client and site address details are the same as they will be for an extension, for loft conversion, for renovation work, and so on, then you can tick that box there and it will copy the site address details across, so you don't have to type them twice. So once you've filled out those details, click Update, and you'll see the client address details and site address details have been filled out, ready to populate the customer quote at a later point. Okay, so I'm now going to come back across to the price book here. So this next option is prompting you to select your price book. This should always be the master price book, which, as we discussed during the last session, should be set up with the prices you pay. So normally you're not going to need to change the price book. If you're in that very small minority of circumstances where you do need a second price book, then you could obviously select it from here. So the next option here is to select a group of estimating calculators. Now, estimating calculators are simply the calculators that EstimatorXpress uses to price up your job. When you're importing a PlansXpress drawing file to take off, the PlansXpress import group of workbooks, group of estimating calculators, will automatically be selected. And what this will do is it will add estimating calculators which aren't typically included in your drawing. So items such as site preliminaries, subcontractors, and so on, it will add those estimating calculators into your estimate on top of all of the drawn estimated items that have come from your PlansXpress drawing. So that estimating calculators, group of estimating calculators, you're not going to need to make any changes to the option selected here when you're doing a PlansXpress import. So again, that's all set up correctly. So the next thing to think about is your build program, often called the Gantt chart. So from here we can set the start date for the job, and we can also select a build program type. So to change the start date, click into the drop-down box and this calendar tool will appear. So you can click through the months using the arrow at the top, and then you can click on the job start date. So I'm going to select 7th of September 2020. If you don't know the job start date, which I guess often you won't do at the outset of estimating, then I would suggest you approximate the start date at this point, and then once you've created the job, you can go into the build program and change the start date at any point at a later date when you need to. So for practice purposes, just select a dummy start date, and then we'll have a look at the build program type. So again, click on the build program type drop-down box, and this is where you can select a template for your build program. So we're going to need to scroll down a little way, and we're going to select the small extension option. Now, the build program isn't generated from the estimate itself, so it doesn't read or look at the estimate data. The build program is a typical build program for this type of work. So what we're doing is we're selecting a typical build program for a small extension. We're going to look at the build program in a lot more detail in our next session in Module 4. Okay, so once you've selected your build program type, you can then select a specification. Click in the drop-down box there. So, of course, if you've spent some time setting up your own specifications, then you can select your own specification at this point. So you could just select the extension specification, which is the out-of-the-box EstimatorXpress spec, or I'm going to select my extension spec. That's the one that we worked on during our last session. So final set of options that we need to consider are what we call the mini specs. So you can refine your specification further. So we've selected this particular extension spec, but you can make further material choices to refine your specification for this particular job. So the first option is for the external wall brickwork. Click in the drop-down box. You'll see this is where you can select your facing brick price. We've got extension or renovation variations and new build variations. The difference between the extension or renovation and new build variations is that the new build ones assume quicker build speeds, whereas extension or renovation options will allow longer for the bricks to be laid. So we've got facing brick options and we've got reclaimed facing brick options if you scroll right down. So let's scroll back up to the top, and let's say we're going to select a 90 pence facing brick. Make sure you select the extension option, not the new build option. After that, then we can consider the roof tiling. What tile type are we going to use? So let's say we're using a plain tile in this case. So we want the plain tile for extension or renovation option. So you can see here we're selecting some of the key resources, the key materials that are going to be used within this estimate. Next, we can select the roof guttering system. So this will select the guttering, the downpipe, and all of the accessories based on the system that we select. So we've got aluminium, cast iron, various shapes and sizes of plastic, and steel and zinc. So let's say we're going to go for plastic half round guttering. There it is. Plastic half round gutter, 112 to 68 mil downpipe. Click to select that. Of course, when you're doing your own estimate, you just select whichever material is appropriate. So we've got some options here that aren't relevant. So flat roof waterproofing, of course we haven't got a flat roof on this design, so we can just skip over any that won't impact on our estimate. We've got fascias, barge boards and soffits to sloped roofs. So we've got a lean-to roof, so we do need to think about this. So here we've got various depths of softwood, fascias and barge boards, and then we've got the UPVC option at the bottom. So let's select the UPVC option from there. Then we've got an option for flat roofs again, so we can ignore that. We've got an option for the floorboards here. So again, at the outset, you can select whether you're going to use tongue and groove, chipboard ones, whether you're going to use plywood, redwood, whitewood, and so on. So let's just say we're going for the top option, chipboard, tongue and groove, 18mm to extension or renovation. Scroll down a little way if you can't see the whole of the window. The final two options then deal with decoration. I'm going to leave that set to same as specification. That just means it's going to take its decoration options from the main specification. I don't feel I need to tweak that at this point. Finally, we've got the plant and labour for excavation options. So you'll recall that the new build spec uses a JCB and driver by default. The extension specification uses a mini digger and driver as the default form of excavation. If, however, space were really restricted, you could select the manual labour option. So I'm going to leave it set to same as specification because I'm happy with the extension specification, which is already using mini digger and driver. Excuse me. Okay, so just before we create our job, we can also review our profit markup. So you'll remember from within the EstimatorXpress library, we set our default overhead and profit markup. But if you want to adapt it for this particular job, then click the Review Profit Markup button and tweak any of those percentages as you need to. Leave them set as they are for now. Equally, click Review Inflation Rates to check how inflation is going to be implied, or how inflation is going to be applied, and the rate that it's going to be set at. Of course, if you're estimating further into the future, then this comes into play in a bigger way. Again, I'm going to leave that set to the defaults for now. Finally, just these couple of buttons on the left-hand side here. You can click the Save Job Profile button if you want to save the combination of settings that you've just chosen here. So it will save the build program, the specification, and so on. So if you regularly do this type of work, you can click the Save Job Profile button. And then next time when you're creating a job, you can click Select Job Profile. You can click that and it will auto fill all of those different fields with your particular choice of options. So that can speed up the process for setting up your estimates in the future. Okay, so once you're happy with all the options and choices you've made, then you want to click Create Job. So when you click Create Job, EstimatorXpress will begin producing the estimate. So it is taking off the dimensions from your PlansXpress drawing and combining them with the specification that you've selected, your mini spec options, and the price book you've selected. So hopefully it will do that in a matter of seconds. And once it's done that, that box will pop up saying what the cost of your job is as it stands at the moment based on the elements that it's imported from PlansXpress. So you can click OK once you've seen that cost. And then you will get a second dialog box. This one is asking if you want to review, if you want to check the lintels and the cavity closures specified in your estimate. If you click yes to that box. So this screen is really straightforward. all you need to do is, if I can find my cursor, here it is, click on the drop down box at the top of the screen and select your cavity width. So ours was a 100mm cavity, so we'll select the middle option. Based on that, EstimatorXpress will automatically select what it thinks are appropriate cavity closures and lintels. If you want to edit any of those, you can click on the drop down box and select an alternative. But 9 times out of 10, the automatically specified cavity closures and lintels will be absolutely appropriate, so you can just click OK. Okay, and then you get that box just it will let you know if you've made any changes. The job cost will be updated accordingly. Okay, so you're now looking at the main estimate screen. The main estimate screen has 2 tabs. So we've got the job overview tab. So if we click on job overview for a moment, the job overview screen gives you a quick status of where the job is up to. So you've got the job status on the right hand side. It also gives you some really important information, your construction costs. So that's costs excluding profit. Then it gives you your profit and overhead figure, and it gives you your final sales price. So that's the price to the customer. We've also got these 2 charts at the bottom, which give you a quick overview of your costs and where the money's going, basically. So the left-hand one gives us a breakdown of costs by build phase. So if you hover your cursor over one of the bars, it will tell you the costs for each particular build phase. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a pie chart showing us the cost of the 5 different resource types within this estimate. So, of course, at the moment, we're looking at a partial estimate based on the imported elements from the PlansXpress drawing. So some of these fields are currently set to 0. So this builds up as you carry out your estimate. So the estimating calculators tab. So we have got tabs on the main part of the screen as well as tabs on the ribbon at the top. So just to differentiate between those 2. If you click on estimating calculators on the main estimate screen, this is where you can see a list of all the estimating calculators that EstimatorXpress has put into this job. So we've got various grayed out estimating calculators. These are the ones that EstimatorXpress thinks you might need to use for this particular job. So we've got things like subcontract quotations, planning and design costs, service charges, site establishment, services installation, various types of walk-in bay windows. These are ones which can't be drawn in PlansXpress, so it's popped them in the estimate just in case you need to use them. However, you'll see there's no cost associated with these at the moment because we haven't opened them up. We haven't done any estimating. So scrolling down, you'll see various other estimating calculators, landscaping, cleaning, all things that you might want to add to your estimate. And then if we scroll down right to the bottom, you'll see we've got the list of estimating calculators which have taken off the data from the drawing we've imported. So they've taken off the dimensions, and that's the basis for our estimate so far, the brick and block cavity walls, the slab, structural opening, and so on. So if you look across the screen from left to right, you'll see we can see the costs associated with each of those elements. We can see the date the estimating calculator was created in this case, but as you go in and open it, this will be updated so you can see when you've last reviewed it. There's a comments column here that allows you to type in any comments. So if there's anything you need to check and you just want to make a note to prompt yourself for the future, then you can just type comments directly into those boxes there. And then we've got the completed tick boxes. These allow you to just tick off for your own reference when you feel an estimating calculator is complete. Then you'll see we've got open and delete buttons as well. So we can open up those estimating calculators and delete them if you need to, but we'll come to opening them up in a moment. Before we open up our brick and block cavity wall, which we're going to do shortly, I just want to talk you through the tabs at the top of the screen. So when you're estimating from a PlansXpress import, on the ribbon at the very top of the screen, we get this Estimating Calculators tab. Hopefully this will feel quite familiar. It's set up in a very similar way to the Architectural tab in PlansXpress. Now this tab allows you to quickly add any other estimating calculators to your estimate that you realise you need. So if there's something that isn't already in the job, isn't already listed in the main estimate screen here, you can quickly add it in using the options here. So for example, on the right hand side here, you might want to add preliminaries and sundries. Looking at the external wall menu, I've realised we haven't added in wall starters yet, so you might want to add that to your estimate and so on. So the estimating calculators allows you to quickly add elements that you haven't already got in your job. Next to the estimating calculators tab, we've got the estimate tab. So I want to talk you through the buttons on this one because it's there's lots of really important features in here. So from here, there's another way of adding an estimating calculator. This can be useful if you can't find the estimating calculator you want using the estimating calculators tab. If you go to estimate and then add estimating calculator, that brings up a search box. So say for example you wanted to add some roof windows, some VLUXs, and you can't find where they're saved. If you type in VLUX, apologies, I've still got caps lock on, and click search, it will locate any estimating calculators with the word VLUX in. It will only bring up estimating calculators if they're not already in your list. So if they're already in your list and you search for them here, they won't appear. That's because you can't add the same estimating calculator twice with the same name. So the word you type in will be filtered, and the word that you're searching for will be highlighted in yellow there. So let's say we want to add VLUX windows, we can just tick that box to select it. You can then search for other estimating calculators. They say we wanted to add site strip into our estimate, so I'm typing site, clicking search. EstimatorXpress will remember the VLUX windows. It hasn't lost it just because it's disappeared. So here we've got site strip, so we can tick that box as well. So now it's got VLUX windows and site strip selected. On the right hand side here, there is an explanation of what each estimating calculator is doing. So if you want to double check that you've selected the right one, have a quick read through the help material there. So once you've selected the estimating calculators you want to add, click the select button, and that will add those estimating calculators to your job. And it's added them at the bottom of the list there, so I've had to scroll down to see them. Okay, so that's the second way of adding an estimating calculator to your estimate. The benefit of that route is that you've got the help available there, so that description of what each estimating calculator does, and also you can do a quick search. So if you're having trouble locating the estimating calculator you need, then that's a good route to go down. Okay, the next button we've got here is the Recalc Job button. So this option is used to correct an estimate. So very occasionally you might be prompted to do a recalculation. So for example, if you change the price of a resource within your estimate, then if you click Recalc Job, that will refresh your estimate, go through, update the prices throughout your estimate based on that price change. We have a very important button in this context, the Import PlansXpress Plan button. So if you make some slight tweaks to your original PlansXpress drawing and you need to re-import the drawing into EstimatorXpress, then that's the button that you click to do that. The one thing you need to consider when you do that is that if you've made any changes to the estimating calculators, which are based on the drawing, So it's only these ones that are in black here, the ones that have been imported from PlansXpress to start with. If you make any changes to those estimating calculators and then re-import your PlansXpress drawing, those changes will be lost. Because what happens is EstimatorXpress will rebuild that brick and block cavity wall estimating calculator. So if you've done any tweaking within it, your changes will be lost. So that's the one key point that you need to take away. You can re-import your drawing, but the estimating calculators based on the plans will be overwritten. All of the other estimating calculators that aren't linked to the drawing, so don't take their dimensions from your plans, they will not be updated. So for example, if you've done some work adding subcontract quotations or adding in some services installation, those estimating calculators won't be affected by the re-importing of your PlansXpress drawing because they're not linked to the drawing to start with. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so other buttons we've got here. We have options to request quotations from some of our merchant partners. So we have Crystal Direct, Windows and Doors, Chimera Energy provide our solar panels now. So if you have selected to download those estimating calculators, you can also send off for a Chimera Energy solar panel quote as well. So you just click those buttons if you want to do that. Delete unused, that allows you to delete any unused estimating calculators for your job. So once you've done your estimating and you want to tidy up your main estimate screen and get rid of any estimating calculators you don't need, just click the delete unused button. This one's quite a handy one. Bring the used estimating calculators to the top. So if you want our brick and block cavity wall and other estimating calculators at the top of the screen, click the bring used to top button, and then you can see those estimating calculators that you have used are at the top. So some people prefer to have them there. And then we have a reorder button that allows you to drag and drop the estimating calculators and place them in an order which is more meaningful to you. So if you don't like the arrangement of the estimating calculators, click reorder and you can simply drag and drop the estimating calculators to where you want them to appear on the main estimate screen. Okay, so those are the two key tabs that I wanted to show you within your estimate. So what we're going to have a look at now is reviewing the estimate in a bit more detail. So we're going to open up a couple of estimating calculators, see what EstimatorXpress has done and how it's come to the costs that you see on screen there. So the first thing we'll do is review our brick and block cavity walls. So if you can't already see brick and block cavity walls, scroll to the relevant part of the main estimate screen. Then click on brick and block cavity wall. When you click on it, the row will become highlighted in blue. That's quite handy because then you can look across to the right and click open. This opens up the summary of the brick and block cavity walls. Sometimes you might have multiple worksheets within here. In this case, we've only got one worksheet, so we can just click open again. So our brick and block cavity wall worksheet for external walls will open up, and at the moment it's in the Dimensions tab. So again, in the main part of the screen, you'll see we've got three different tabs to navigate between. So the Dimensions tab contains, as you'd imagine, the dimensions for our brick and block cavity walls. You'll see as you look across, we have got 3 columns of dimensions. So we've got one for each of the walls that we've drawn. So you'll see we've got the length and the height of the walls. And as you cast your eye down the screen, we've got the foundation dimensions. We've got the footing dimensions. Scrolling further down, a few more details to do with the foundations, and then we've got plastering and decoration details and insulation options. Then we can see the gable dimensions. Of course, all of these dimensions have been taken directly off the plans. And then we can see some totals here. So we've got the total area of gable for each wall, the total area of insulation for each wall, and so on. So this is where we can review the dimensions for our external walls. A really important note here, when you open up your estimating calculators in EstimatorXpress, if you realise that you need to make some changes to the dimensions or the estimating options, you should only make changes here if you're really sure that you're not going to re-import the drawing. If you realise you need to make significant changes, so for example, if you realise the lengths of your walls are not correct, then I would recommend that you go back to your PlansXpress drawing, make the changes within the drawing, and then re-import it. If you want to make just a minor tweak to your external walls, then you can make the change within the external wall estimating calculator. But as I mentioned before, you need to be aware of the fact that if you do a re-import from PlansXpress, any changes will be overwritten within the estimating calculator. So you just need to think that through. Is this a significant change? If so, go back to PlansXpress and make the change there. If it's just a minor tweak and I'm very confident that I don't need to change my drawing, then I can make it within this estimating calculator. But the only trouble with making changes within your estimating calculator is that it leaves you open to things becoming out of sync. So if you make the change within your estimate that you haven't made within your drawing, there can be an issue there with things being out of sync. So just bear that in mind. So of course we've looked at the dimensions, but of course you will also want to review your resources. So if we click onto the next tab on the main part of the screen, that's called the Calculated Resources tab. This will show us the material, labour and plant quantities and costs, which have all been calculated based on the wall dimensions and the estimating options that you selected when you were first drawing your walls as well. So on the Calculated Resources tab, for example, just picking out the bricks above DPC, you can see here we've got the facing bricks that we selected with a 90p allowance. So those are the bricks we selected when we were creating the estimate using the mini spec option. So if you look across the screen, you can see the cost of those bricks, so 90p each. Usage factor, so 60 bricks used per square metre. And if we scroll further across, we can see that we've got 17.4 square metres, so that's the total quantity. And then we can see our costs for the bricks plus the wastage. That gives us our total cost and our resource quantity, so that's the number of bricks that we need plus the wastage. So it's saying in total we need 1,096 bricks for our external walls. So of course each resource has been estimated and calculated in the same level of detail. So if we look at our blocks above DPC, we can see of course which blocks have been specified, the cost of them per square metre. That was one of the prices that I changed within the price book actually. I changed that, I decreased it from £15 a square metre, so you can see how those changes are filtering through to your estimate. So £12 a square metre, we can see we need 16.66 square metres. Again, we can see the cost excluding and including wastage, and the quantities excluding and including wastage. So scrolling down the screen, we've got the materials, and then we've got the labour. So starting with excavating the trench all the way through to applying decoration. And then finally we've got the excavation. So we selected that extension specification which had a mini digger and driver specified. If you'd selected manual labour, then you would see that there would be no plant specified here. So the estimating calculators hopefully are looking fairly familiar, because the estimating calculator really is a copy of the relevant part of the specification, so that it's organised in exactly the same way with materials, labour, and then any plant items at the bottom. So it may be that you look at your estimating calculator and you think, oh, there's actually a resource in there that I need to swap. You might want to change your specified resources. Or it may be that you look at it and you think, oh, I don't think the usage factor for that material is quite right. I want to make a slight change to that. Now you can do that, of course. If you want to make a change to any of the specified resources or their usage factors, then the place to do that is in the job specification. So within your estimate, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see your job settings. So a little bit of theory about how EstimatorXpress creates your estimate. What it does is it takes a copy of the master price book, it takes a copy of the specification you selected. So the price book here within the job settings and the specification here within the job settings, they are your job price book and your job specification. They are a copy of the original library specification and price book that you selected. So you can make changes within this job specification and it won't impact on your library specification. So that means you can have a slightly different specification for this particular job. So you can make tweaks within it. So if you realize that you want to select a different block, for example, you can go to the job settings and then the specification, and you can swap your block in exactly the same way as we did in the library specification. That change of resource will only impact on this particular estimate unless you decide to apply changes to the library specification. There is a way of doing that. The reason you want to make your changes within the job specification and not within the estimating calculator itself, there's two main reasons for that. The first is to do with the PlansXpress re-import. So if you do if you do need to adapt your drawing and you re-import it, any material or resource changes within your estimating calculator will be overridden. So that issue is still relevant. Also, if you make your changes within the job specification, you can then apply it to your entire estimate. So if you've got multiple walls containing blocks, it will swap over those blocks in all of the different estimating calculators. Or for example, if you change your roof insulation type and you've got a complex roof that's got an apex and an apex valley and a lean-to section, it will apply that insulation choice to all of the different parts of the roof. So if you make the changes within the specification, that can be applied to the whole estimate. Whereas if you make a change within an estimating calculator, it's just changed it in that one place. So if you've got another wall, you'd have to go into that estimating calculator and make the change there as well. And you've still got that issue that if you re-import your PlansXpress drawing, you're gonna lose that change. The specification is not affected by a PlansXpress import. Okay. So that's our brick and block cavity wall, and you can see how PlansXpress and EstimatorXpress together have come to create that estimate for constructing our brick and block cavity walls. So scrolling back up on the Navigator on the left hand side, I'd like us to go back to the main estimate screen. So as I said before, you'll notice that next to each estimating calculator there's a completed tick box. So for your own reference, you might want to tick that off so you know you've reviewed it, you're happy with everything in there. Of course, once you've made any changes you need to make within the spec and so on. If you realise you do need to make a change, then you can go back into it and do that that's no problem. It doesn't, it's not set in stone. And of course, don't forget you can use that comments box if you need to put in a reminder or something you need to check, or any kind of comment that's useful for you. Okay, so let's have a look at the part of the estimate which deals with the roof now, so you can have a look in detail at a second estimating calculator. So a few rows down on the main estimate screen, we've got the PlansXpress cut roof. So you can click the open button to open it, or you can also double click to open an estimating calculator. So as I mentioned before, an estimating calculator can have more than one sheet in. In this case, we have an estimating calculator which deals with the vaulted ceiling. And we'll see the cost for the vaulted ceiling there. And then we then have a worksheet which deals with the rest of the roof. The vaulted ceiling worksheet includes noggins between rafters, plastering and decoration to the vaulted ceiling. Let's have a look at the main roof for now though. So we can click the open button adjacent to main roof. And you'll see the estimating calculators all look similar. So we've got 3 tabs across the screen. So EstimatorXpress has taken off the dimensions from the PlansXpress drawing and fed them all into the estimate for our lean-to roof. So again, we've got this list of dimensions, so we can scroll down and look at it. There is a lot to absorb where roofs are concerned. So another way of reviewing that data is to click the DIMS wizard button. So on the ribbon at the top of the screen, there's a button called DIMS, stands for Dimensions Wizard. You click on that. And the dimensions wizards allow you to review the dimensions against diagrams. So it can be an easier way to absorb the information. So click next to click through the various pages. As with the walls, we're going into the estimating calculator just to look at the data and to check the data. If you find you need to make some big changes, then you should go back into the PlansXpress drawing and make the changes there before re-importing the drawing. So hopefully these screens again will feel very familiar, as they are very similar to the ones you've seen in PlansXpress when you're creating, when you're selecting your different components from the architectural tab. The dimensions wizards you see in PlansXpress and the ones in EstimatorXpress are pretty much identical. So once you've finished reviewing the dimensions, assuming you're happy with them, we can then click the Calculated Resources tab. So as you'd expect, EstimatorXpress has calculated all of the timbers. So we've got the rafters, noggings, gable ladder rafters, wall plate, ridge. I say ridge, we don't have one in this case, do we? Apex roof ridge. If I look across, it's actually zeroed out. So what we have got is the lean-to apex wall plate, internal wall plate. We don't have any valley lay-boards or hip ridges and so on. So some of these will be zeroed where they're not appropriate. But if we scroll down, we can see our tiles. So we selected a plain clay tile option. So those have been specified. We can also see, if we go up a little bit, the fascia and barge boards we selected. And scrolling down a little bit further, we can see the gutter we selected, and then all of the associated accessories are appropriate for the guttering system we selected. Again, if you want to change any of the specified resources or the rates of production or rates of usage, which we call the usage factor, then you would want to go to the job specification, use the Navigator to go to the job specification and make the changes there. Okay, so hopefully you're getting a feel for how to navigate your way into the various estimating calculators, how you can review the dimensions, how you can review the resources, and what to do if you need to make a change. So if you need to change the dimensions, go back to your drawing. If you want to swap resources, specified resources, go into the job specification. Okay, the last estimating calculator I wanted to have a look at is the window. So scroll back up on the Navigator. You'll see on the Navigator you've got a list of all the estimating calculators here. So you can go back to the main estimate and open a different estimating calculator, or you can go directly to another estimating calculator by clicking on it on the Navigator. So locate the estimating calculator called PVCU Windows. Click on it to select it. That will open the summary of the PVCU windows. Just got one in here. If you had multiple windows, you might have a list. Click Open to open that worksheet. So as always, you start off in the Dimensions tab so you can see the dimensions of the window. So we're going to go directly to the Calculated Resources tab. So window estimating calculators and any estimating calculators to do with opening, so doors and structural openings work in the same way. They have calculated resources and they also have sundry resources. So the calculated resources include items such as fixings, plaster, silicone, decoration, and so on. So the materials and the labour for these items are based on the dimensions that come from the Dimensions tab. Sundry resources, if we click onto sundry resources, these items are not calculated based on the dimensions. So they are pre-filled with appropriate figures. So you can see we've got a 600 by 1200 window. And if we look across to the quantity column here, there's one of them. We've got a 900mm lintel specified. And again, if we look across, we've got one of them. So that 900mm lintel specified because it's a 600 wide window, as you'd expect. We've got cavity closers. We've got labourers to fix the window and the glazing, and so on. The important thing to know about sundry resources is that this quantity per item column, as you can see, is unlocked. So that means you can type figures in or zero items out. So with structural openings, that gives you a degree of flexibility to estimate for different scenarios. So quite a common scenario that we find is that builders will form the opening and subcontract out the fitting of the window and the glazing to a third-party glazer. If that's the case, then what you can do is you can set the quantity of windows to 0 and set the fixing of the window, which is 4 lines from the bottom, to 0, and also the glazing of the window, set that to 0. So what we've done is we have zeroed out, we've removed the PVCU elements from the estimate, as we're going to have that third-party contractor, subcontractor, supplying and fitting the window. We've still got a cost here of £162, and that's the cost to you as a builder for forming the opening, plastering, decorating, making good, and so on. You could then add the cost of supplying and fitting the windows as a subcontractor quotation to your estimate. So the Sundry Resources tab gives you that freedom and that flexibility to make changes at this kind of level. As always, it's really important to remember that making changes to an estimating calculator will leave you open to problems if you have to re-import your drawing. Any changes you've made here, as always, I'm probably starting to bore you, they will be overwritten if you do a PlansXpress drawing import, re-import. So just be mindful of that. It might be that that's absolutely fine. If you're happy with your drawing, you can make these kind of changes, but just bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to change these figures back to 1 for now. I'm going to imagine that we are supplying and fitting that window ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main estimate by clicking Main Estimate on the Navigator. And we're now going to have a look at some preliminary costs. So of course, the preliminary costs are not going to have been taken off from your plans, so those are costs that you need to add in within your estimate. So what we're going to do is open up some of the estimating calculators which have already been added to the job but haven't got any figures in yet, and we're going to do some estimating with them. So within the main estimate screen on the Estimating Calculators tab, we're going to locate Planning and Design Costs. So it's the 4th grayed out estimating calculator. Again, you can click Open or you can double click to open it up. So when you open up your Planning and Design Costs estimating calculator, a box will pop up prompting you to add a worksheet. There's no worksheet in there at the moment, so we need to add one in. It will give you a default worksheet name, so it's calling it design work. You can overwrite that, you can change it to whatever you want it to be. The default names are usually very sensible, so unless you've got a particular reason for changing them, I wouldn't worry too much. The location, it's saying this is to do with our lean-to extension, so that all makes sense. Then we have a list of different templates for different sizes of job. So select the template description that sounds most appropriate. So in this case, it's going to be planning and design costs for small home extension. Whichever template you select, it will take you to exactly the same place in the estimating calculator, but each of the templates has different default values entered. So a large home extension, the figures for the design work will be higher than for a small home extension, and obviously the design cost for a new house will be larger still. So it just means the starting figures that are in there will be more appropriate for the type of work you're doing. So select small home extension, click Add, and you'll see a dimensions wizard with 7 different types of cost which you might incur on a job will appear in front of you. So as I said, there's some default figures in there, but of course you may want to tweak them, and you probably will want to change them. So say I've got a good deal with my architect and the design fees are actually not 500, they're 400. I can type the architect's fees in there. Perhaps the engineer's fees are going to be higher. Some difficulty with the site. I'm going to change that to £500 for my engineer's fees. You can see there's also fees for building regs, plan fees and inspection fees. There's a planning application fee, NHBC cover, which is obviously zeroed out for this type of work, and site investigation costs as well. So all you would do is just type in the relevant figures there. Once you've done, click Finish. You'll see the total cost for planning and design at the top right hand corner of your screen. That will be added to our estimate cost. So you can see in a couple of minutes how you can add those planning and design costs to your estimate. Let's say we also want to look at the site establishment estimating calculator. So remember, you can navigate directly to the estimating calculators using the Navigator on the left hand side. So a few lines down, we've got the site establishment estimating calculator. Single click on that to open it. Again, the process is exactly the same for adding a worksheet to the estimating calculator. So there's a default worksheet name and location. Let's leave those as they are for now. And we have a longer list of templates for different types of work. So read the descriptions and decide which best fits the type of work you're doing. So say we are doing a small extension and we're going to provide toilet facilities, so we don't need to use the customer toilet, which I guess will be very much the norm at the moment anyway. So select that option, site establishment for small extension, and click add. So the site establishment estimating calculator is full of various preliminary costs, many of which can really easily be overlooked and will leave you out of pocket if they're not factored in. So it deals with the creation of a site compound, of course, if needed. It deals with the cost of welfare items, so the cabin and toilet and so on. It deals with some sundry skip permit costs, insurance, health and safety costs, and so on. And the health and safety cost is an interesting one at the moment because, of course, with the current situation with COVID-19, there are going to be increased costs associated with health and safety, and that is going to be something that you're going to need to discuss with your clients. And because it's a combined cost, it's not a cost that you have to foot entirely yourselves. It should be something that you're working with the client to cover. So health and safety is a really important consideration at the moment. So you can see that lots of the items here are hired or bought in units of time, so by the day, the week, the month, and so on. What that does mean is that you're going to be approximating how long you're going to need these items for at the outset, I'd imagine, and you may need to come back into this estimating calculator at a later point when you have a firmer idea of the exact duration of the job and so on, so that you can make sure you're estimating accurately for these different items. So the first two, we've got our site cabin and site toilet, so they're set to 6 weeks. So let's say the job's going to take 12 weeks. We can change those to 12. Then we have some options dealing with security fencing. Let's say we don't need any, set those to 0. Length of security fencing, duration of hire, 0. Number of days JCBs needed to clear the site. Again, you can set that as required, but it's more relevant to new build and clearing the land for a compound. And again, we've got some labour, some time allowed for a labourer to set up the site compound. So again, in an extension scenario, we can leave that set to 0. Skip the site clearance. So that's set to 1, but you can tweak that as you need for your job. So I'm going to click next. So of course, if you're building a house, you do new build work, you're more likely to need a site compound. So this is where you would enter the length, the width, and the depth of the compound base. If there's any other irregular areas, you can add them on there. So we'll leave that all zeroed out for now. And then finally, we have some sundry project costs, so things to do with skip permits, parking bay suspensions. Those would obviously need tweaking per job. It might be that you need a skip permit. It might be that they have space on their land that you don't need to use a skip permit, so you could zero that out if that's the case. And then we've got insurance costs, site security, health and safety, and traffic regulation costs, if applicable. So health and safety, that's going to cover things like signage, PPE, any health and safety consultation, costs that are incurred in relation to the job. As with the other estimating calculators, you start with some sensible default figures, but you can tweak them as you need to. And once you've done that, click Finish. So that's your site establishment dealt with. We're now going to have a look at some other aspects of an estimate that again can be easily overlooked. We're going to have a look at what we call sundry plant. So it's the next one down in the list actually on the Navigator. You see a little forklift truck icon. Click where it says sundry plant. That will open that estimating calculator up directly. So I'm sure you're getting the drill now about how to add a worksheet. You can review the name, change it if you need to. Select an appropriate dimensional template. So each of the templates will have slightly different default values for the different types and size of job. So we've got a small single story extension template here. That sounds most appropriate. Click Add to add the worksheet in. So the sundry plant estimating calculator is a long list of assorted tools and plant items that you may typically hire or buy for a job. So the first screen is for plant hire. So all you need to do is enter the number of weeks that each item is required. So how many weeks will you need to hire a ladder, cement mixer, and so on. You just type in the number of weeks that you need each of those items for. So that's the plant hire. Click Next. This screen is for tool and plant purchases. So the costs of all these items come out of your back pocket. If you don't attribute them to the estimate, then it's going to eat into your profit. So you're going to be subsidizing the bill basically. So again, just take a moment to have a look down the list. We don't need to put any figures in at the moment, unless you want to, for practice purposes. So what I'm keen to do is just show you where you would add these costs to your estimate. So if we click Next, the final screen just deals with spoil and waste plant hire. So for your rubbish chute, you would type in the number of weeks that it's going to be hired for, and then you can type in the number of chute fixing frames, hoppers and sections. And the spoil conveyor works in a similar way. Type in the number of weeks you're going to need to hire the spoil conveyor, and then the number of each of those components that you need. So once you're happy with all of your sundry plant, click Finish. And again, top right hand corner here, you can see the total cost for this particular estimating calculator. So we're now going to have a look at travel costs. So we're working through a number of the different preliminary and sundry costs that you're going to need to add to your estimating calculator to complete your estimate. So a couple of lines up, we've got travel costs. This is where a lot of builders actually make losses that you're not aware of until your accountant looks at your books and they separate out your gross profit from your net profit, and you'll realise your net profit's actually shrinking because of the costs associated with owning and running vans. So again, check you're happy with the worksheet name and location. There's only one template in here. That's because it starts with 0 values in, because there's no way of really estimating what your travel costs will be. It's very specific to the vehicles you own and the distances you're traveling to a particular job. Okay, so in the dimensions wizard, we've got 3 lines at the top for 3 different sizes of van. So a small van is something like an Escort or a Focus size van. Medium van is your typical transit van, and a large van would be a large kind of long wheelbase transit or a Luton type van. So think about firstly the type of van you have. Then you need to think about how many miles per day you will drive to and from the site, and then how many days you'll be on site. So I'll give you an example. So say I've got a transit van, so I'm going to use the middle box. My journey to site is only 5 miles. Doesn't sound like much, does it? So that's 10 miles for the round trip each day. The job's going to be 3 months long. So if I work on the basis of 20 working days in a month, that's 60 days of travelling 10 miles a day. So 60 times 10, 600. So I'm typing in the number of miles I'm going to travel during the duration of that job. So I've typed 600 adjacent to the medium van. If you had 2 identical vehicles, then you would double that figure, if they're doing the same mileage, of course. If you had 1 large van travelling from 10 miles away, then of course you could type the figure separately into that large van input box there. So for now, we're saying we've got that 1 transit van that we're travelling 10 miles to and from site over 60 days. We'll see what that those miles equate to in a minute. So then we've got a daily parking fee here. So if applicable, you could type that in there. I'm going to zero that out. If there is a daily parking fee, then you would type in the number of days that you're going to have to pay it. So I guess we'd say 60 days if it's a 3-month job. And there's an option here for congestion charge. The congestion charge, you'll remember, was in the plant section of the price book. So that's where it takes the cost from, and it will multiply it by the number of days you type in there. So once you've filled in your mileage, you've checked your daily parking and congestion charges, click Finish. Click on the Calculated Resources tab. And here you can see we've got the various van sizes. And you can see that for the medium van, what it's allowing is 70 pence per mile. So that covers your expenses for running your van. That covers your fuel, it covers your wear and tear on the van. It also covers vehicle depreciation. So 70 pence a mile for 600 miles. If we scroll across, we can see that amounts to £420. It's quite a significant cost, isn't it? Just for travelling a short distance to site. If you don't take your mileage into account, then over the course of a year, you could be a few £1,000s out of pocket for each vehicle you have. So it's an important cost to factor in. We don't want you losing your profits. This is where, the accuracy is really, really important for making sure that you're really making good money. Okay, so we've had a look at various different preliminary costs. You can see just by looking at the list on the Navigator that there are other preliminary costs that you may need to add in. We haven't got time to go through every single one of them today, but what I do want to show you is the Subcontract Quotations estimating calculator. So if you can find that, it's just under the list of imported estimating calculators. We've got Subcontract Quotations. So the Subcontract Quotations estimating calculator allows you to add fixed price quotes into your estimate. So when you open it up, you'll see there's already one worksheet in there. We just need to click Open to open that. A box pops up telling us that the number of items is currently set to 0, meaning nothing will be estimated. So usually in this box we just need to type 1. If you wanted to multiply your costs, all your costs by 2, so if you needed double of each, 2 of each subcontract quotation, you can set it to 2. But usually that figure just needs to be set to 1, and then you'll have one lot of each subcontract quotation that you add in. So here you can see a list of all of the various contractors taken from the subcontract quotation section of the price book. You can see they're all set to £1. Hopefully you remember that from the price book. So if we select, for example, the PVCU window subcontractor, we could put that in as, say, a specialist contractor. So that's the one at the bottom. If there are any subcontractors that you don't have the specific trade for, you can select specialist contractor. There's also the general quotations, subcontract quotation as well. You could use that. But if we select the specialist contractor for our specialist PVCU fitter, let's say they are supplying and fitting our window and they're charging, I don't know, £400 to do that. In the quantity per item column, you'll see it's unlocked, so you can just type directly in there 400, and that will add £400 to our estimate. All the prices you type in are excluding VAT and excluding any profit. So your profit margin will be added onto there at the rate you've got set for your subcontractors. So if it's set to 20%, 15% overhead and 20% profit, that will be added on top of that £400. Or let's say we've got a plumber coming in. So I'm going to select the plumbing contractor, and he is going to be fitting a radiator and connecting up to the existing system in the house. So let's say that's going to cost £500. Type that into the quantity per item column. So if you click on the contractor first, then that helps you make sure you're typing into the right box. So you can see that you can add multiple subcontract quotations in this way. So you use this estimating calculator when you're subcontracting out some work and the subcontractor is doing the work at a fixed price. And as I mentioned before, you're going to make profit on top of that. So if you're happy with how that estimating calculator works, we are going to go back to our main estimate screen. So I'm just going to talk for a minute about how you can complete your estimate then. So we've been dipping and diving into different estimating calculators. But to complete your estimate, then what I would suggest you do is that you work your way down the main estimate screen using the remaining estimating calculators as a checklist. So work your way down the list, go into an estimating calculator if you think you need to estimate that element, and you could type in the relevant figures, dimensions, whatever as you need within that estimating calculator. If you come to an estimating calculator that you don't need, so for example, I've got the site acquisition costs estimating calculator here. For this extension, there are no site acquisition costs. So I can click the delete button. That will just delete the calculator out of the list. If I later realized I did need it, I could go to prelims and sundries and add it back in. So it's not the end of the world. You delete it, it's just deleted from the estimate for now. So you can delete it, or alternatively, so let's say I don't need site appraisal costs, I can just leave it in there. It's got no costs associated with it. Unless I open it up and put some data in there, it's got a zero cost. So you can leave it in the main estimate screen, it doesn't matter. So work whichever way is better for you. If you'd rather tidy it up and delete it, that's no problem. So again, just continue your way down the list, ignoring any estimating calculators that you don't need, and then opening up any estimating calculators you think maybe you do need. So temporary house and drive protection, yeah, that might be relevant in this case. Let's open it up. There's one template in there. Add it in. It's just a case of going through the screens and typing figures in for the different elements of house protection, bathroom, kitchen and partitioning, if it's relevant, temporary ground protection and so on. So this is where you would add that in. Open up the estimating calculators you think are relevant and add in any costs you need to. So I'm going to go back to main estimate screen for now. So you'd continue in that way, opening up the estimating calculators you need to use, ignoring or deleting the ones you don't need. If you realise there's something you need in there which isn't in there, so for example, if you were estimating plumbing and heating yourself rather than doing it as a subcontract cost, then you could go to the estimating calculators tab on the ribbon, and there we've got the plumbing menu. You could add your plumbing in that way. Or if you needed to add electrics in, then you can click the electrical drop-down menu, and so on. That's, of course, if you haven't already drawn them in PlansXpress. It may be that you've drawn your electrics and you've drawn your plumbing and you've imported it and those costs have been taken off already. So it just depends how you've approached it. Any estimating calculators you add to the estimate will not be affected if you have to re-import your PlansXpress drawing. So just to recap that, only the estimating calculators with data from your PlansXpress drawing are affected by a re-import. So finally, just to recap, if you need to make a significant design change, then the best way to do that would be to edit your original PlansXpress drawing and re-import it using, go to the Estimate tab and clicking Import PlansXpress Plan. However, if you realise you've just missed something small off your drawing, such as wall starters, which I've realised we didn't draw, it might be quicker just to add them to the estimate, rather than editing your drawing, re-importing it and risking overwriting anything you've been working on. So if you wanted to add wall starters, you could go to Estimating Calculators, External Wall, and select the wall starter option. Okay, so just apply your own judgment in the knowledge that a re-import will overwrite any of the work on the PlansXpress linked estimating calculators. Okay, so I've covered everything I wanted to in Module 3. Thank you for that. So I'm hoping that you're getting a really clear understanding of how EstimatorXpress works and how you can add your preliminaries, subcontract quotations, and other costs into your estimate. Okay, so let's go through our quiz questions for the day. So they're all to do with importing your plans into EstimatorXpress and finishing your estimate. So the first question is, which button should I click to import my PlansXpress drawing into EstimatorXpress? So which of the buttons on the ribbon do you need to click? Is it Import Job, Create New Group of Jobs, Create New Job, or Open Job? Which of those buttons do you click to start the process? Okay, and the answer is Create New Job. And the reason I've put that question in there is because it would be very easy to think the Import Job button is the one to press. The Import Job button is all about importing EstimatorXpress jobs when you've backed them up or you're moving them from another computer. Okay, so well done with that one. Okay. The next question is, what state should my drawing be in, my PlansXpress drawing be in, before I import it into EstimatorXpress? So what do you think? It doesn't matter. It should be complete if possible. Re-importing the PXD, that's the PlansXpress drawing file, has challenges. Or complete. I can't re-import my drawing if I make a change. Okay, so I'd be surprised if you didn't get this one because I've been over it a few times today. So the middle option is the correct one. It's best for your drawing to be complete if at all possible. If you have to re-import your PlansXpress drawing, then it will overwrite estimating calculators within your job. And so if you've made any changes within there, they will be lost. So it's just being aware of that fact. Okie dokes. Question number 3. I want to make changes to the dimensions of my walls. How should I make them? Should I change the dimensions in the wall estimating calculator? Should I adapt the PlansXpress drawing and re-import? Or should I adapt the drawing? The estimate will automatically update. Which of those 3 do you think's correct? Well, the answer, of course, is the middle option. So you should make your changes in PlansXpress. Then open up your estimate, go to the Estimate tab and click Re-import PlansXpress plans to bring you the latest version of your PlansXpress drawing into EstimatorXpress. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we've talked about changing dimensions, and now we're talking about changing resources. So I want to change a resource which is specified for my roof. Where should I make the change? Should I make the change in the roof estimating calculator, in the PlansXpress drawing, in the job specification, or in the library specification? You're beating me to the answers today, so that's brilliant. So the correct answer is the job specification. So if you want to change resources or usage factors within your job, go to the job specification, make the changes there, and then you can click the Apply Spec button, and that will apply all of the changes you've made to your entire estimate. So the advantages of making changes in the job spec are that the changes will filter through to all of the relevant elements. So if you've got a roof with multiple sections and you make a roof tile change, that will filter through to all of the different roof sections. Or if you've got multiple places where your blocks are used in external walls, then again it will filter down to all the relevant parts. Also, the job specification isn't impacted by a PlansXpress drawing re-import. Okay, and final question is, how can I estimate plumbing and heating? Can I draw pipework and plumbing and heating components on the plans? Can I estimate them in the relevant estimating calculator? Can I add the cost as a subcontractor quotation? Or can I do any of the above? You've rightly spotted that you can do any of the above. And I've given plumbing and heating as an example there, but it applies to everything really. Any construction-based items really, you can draw on your plans, you can use the relevant estimating calculator to estimate them, or you can add them as a subcontract quotation. So 9 times out of 10 you've got all of those options available to you. It just depends on the way you're putting your estimate together and the way you're most confident doing those elements of the estimate. It may be that you want to have a plumbing and heating layout, so having the drawing is helpful to you. It may be that you just want them in the estimate, and the quickest way to do it is to add the cost directly to your estimate in EstimatorXpress. So do whichever works best for you. Okay, so that is the final question done. So thank you so much, as always, for joining in with the quiz. So that's our session finished on importing our PlansXpress drawing and completing the estimate in EstimatorXpress. As always, if you have any time to continue working on your estimate today or this evening, or in the immediate future, then it's really worthwhile doing that while the training is fresh. Our next session is on Thursday, same time as today, so starting at 10 o'clock. So I look forward to seeing you then, and I'm going to be going through the build program, the data reports, and the customer quotation side of things. So lots of interesting stuff to look at there. Tech support, as always, would be happy to answer any queries you've got in the meantime, so do get in touch with them, phone or email. Thanks again for today. Thanks for your time, really appreciate it. I hope you have a good couple of days. And assuming you don't have any more questions, I will sign off with you. So take care, and I'll speak to you on Thursday. Thank you.